Welcome everyone to episode 119 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pentalaresco. I write stuff and podcast too. Today, my guest is returning to the podcast, the incredibly talented, driven, amazing Suzy Vadori. She loves books, man. She really, really does. I'm really looking forward to reading The West Woods. Suzy's debut novel, The Fountain, was really, really good. It was incredibly smartly written. I really, really enjoyed it, and it's been a year since we talked, and from being Aurora nominated to releasing her next book, it's a really cool challenge, and I really enjoyed my conversation with her. Awesome individual. But now that I'm here, let's talk real quick. We are in my third When Words Collide batch of interviews, and this year I'm doing something a little different. I'm starting this year with guests that have been previously on the show, which is a good third of the interviews coming up in the next week and a half. It'll be Suzy Vadori, Vanessa Cardaway, and Joanne Morcom to start things off. Then we get to the one and only Pat Flowing to close off the first 2 weeks. And then we got to start diversifying to new people that have never been on the show before. It's really cool to get at this point of the year. I got some really amazing guests coming down the pike. I am trying to secure some of the biggest people I can in publishing, and I got one I really can't wait to talk about down the road. In the meantime, I'm still kind of committing this bizarre form of suicide because I got 3 days ahead in a short story, but I'm doing the podcast because I'm crazy and stuff. Yeah, that's it. I'm crazy and stuff. Anyway, let's get right to our conversation with Suzy Vadori. Okay, so the recorders are on, just so you know.
My secret.
That's right.
I will not disclose.
That's right. There's a conspiracy involving an alien and some other stuff. Wait, you didn't pay me enough money to keep that a secret. So I'm giving it away, folks. There were aliens involved. There's something. And Suzy over here is trying to keep a straight face and failing miserably. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too, because a straight face is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
I'm generally smiling.
Yes.
Especially when I'm at a conference like When Words Collide, because there's nothing not to smile about. This has really been awesome.
It's been fun. I did my first panel this year too. So I did a podcast panel. And so what I did is I got the whole audience giggling because I brought in Flocks and Stocks by Dr. Seuss, and I had a contest. I said who can ever read whatever part they read the best gets a book.
Cool.
So that's what I did. I gave a book away, and now also they're getting like a free presentation of that whole panel. Like everybody left me in their email. That's what they're getting. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
So what have you done so far for this thing besides the one thing, but the conspiracy thing. What else have you? The conspiracy thing. That's right.
Well, I run the young adult programming for When Words Collide. I'm the program manager for young adults here, and I've done that for 5 years. And there's tons of topics, and the neat thing about being a new author myself and also getting to create the topics in that genre is that I make the topics that I want to know about and I need to learn for my own career, and I think everybody benefits. So one of the panels that I just came from was how to make a living in YA Lit, and that was really neat because there's lots of different revenue streams that you can figure out, and so that was really fun with some really experienced authors that are living the dream, right?
Yeah. So who was on that panel?
Adam Dries and Danielle L. Jensen was on that panel, as well as Shirley Smith Matheson and Fonda Lee. And they are all extremely different people with extremely different paths, and I find that really fascinating. And every author I meet, I just find fascinating that their path is different because the book is part of it, but what else they do to supplement that and how they build their life and their career and how they get it done and how they pursue their passions are all so different that I find it really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, we all get into this in our own ways. Like for me, I've never really wanted to do anything else, and it's led to where it has led for me, and ups and downs. I have no regrets, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. In your case, I feel it might be a touch different. I might be wrong on this. You might have always wanted to tell stories, but something tells me that didn't really click in until a little bit later.
Absolutely, and I think one of the reasons that I write, I can't remember if I talked about this on our last podcast, but one of the things is I've always been a writer. I've always written things, and some stories I started writing, the germ of The Fountain was when I was in my tweens, like always wanted to write a boarding school novel, that type of thing. For me, everything, as an executive in my day job, it's difficult to keep those, and as a mom, it's difficult to keep those things separate. And so, as I always struggle to write, it's a passion for me. The conversation has always been, well, either things that I think would be explosive or terrific or would want to share are either way too personal and not something I'm comfortable sharing because I'm just not that person, or they didn't fit with being a mom and being an executive. And so when young adult took off, sort of 10 years ago or so, and I started reading that, I realized that it was kind of the best of both worlds, that I could still keep that. I don't write under a pseudonym. I am Suzy Vadori in the PTA, I'm Suzy Vadori everywhere, but writing teen romance in a clean fashion, really, but that appeals to both kids and adults. I've been able to actually, let my kids read my books, be able to be myself, and be able to maintain my career and all of those things, and still have that passion fulfilled for writing books and not have that collide, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, there is something to be said sometimes about keeping things separate. Some people that works. I can't, because it's just not my personal makeup. It's just
right.
This is who I am, and I can't do it any other way. I just don't. I was never taught how to buffer. It also seems like work, because for me it's just like, okay, so I'm self-conscious that this is it's almost like having a secret identity kind of thing. It's like, I have a secret identity, so what can I say? It gets confusing for someone like me, so I just like, screw it. I'm just me, and I just sleep at night.
It can be me, and that's what I'm saying is I actually don't really keep it that separate. I'm very honest about it. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, which kind of crosses over there, I have both things listed, right? I have that I'm a writer and that I'm in operations. I have both of those things listed, and I'm comfortable with that. And until I found sort of the way that would represent my brand and who I am, and that is really young adult fiction, and I love it.
Oh, so I guess I'll ask the fun, quote unquote hard question. Who is Suzy Vadori as a brand and as a person, as a writer?
I think, one of the things that I'm becoming known for is the relationships that I write into the books. And so what I'm finding is both adults and, teen romance is cool. It's all about discovery and newness and things. And one of the themes that has come out of it, if you look at it in a negative sense, sometimes people associate mean girls or bullying, and that's not what I want to be associated with, and it's not the intent at all. So you got to build stories around friendship and rivalry and romance, and those are the themes that I'm talking about at school visits. Those are the themes that I'm teaching about, and the things that I teach to my own kids. And they might come across as situations. You can look at the negative, but teaching those actual building of relationships and kids learning what healthy relationships look like versus unhealthy relationships has been super fun.
What I liked about The Fountain, my personal favorite thing, yes, I know I'm not quite your audience, but I did read The Fountain. It was interesting because she had to make a very adult choice. Because again, and I know this too, there's adults on my day job that struggle with this thing. She really legitimately did not like who was bullying her and tormenting her, and she had to make a really conscious choice whether or not to actually bring her back into the picture or not. And just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean they don't have the same right to life as you. And that's a very adult perspective. That's not like something kids do. And that's where there. So my curiosity is when we get to the West Woods, right? Where does that go? Because you obviously created this situation for a reason. Okay,
so there's two things that I'll say to that, and that is that having kids or teens or coming of age being forced into adult situations, that is the textbook definition of a young adult book, right? So that's what it is. That means that you need to, some people call it kill the parents. You need to find a way that they don't have parental figures. You need to absolutely discount. In fact, in The Fountain, one of the very last things that we did was there was a character in there that could have been a sympathetic adult, and we had to change it. You can't have any way for them to get out of it. Adults have credit cards. Adults can fix things. Adults have experience. So I would just say that. So yes, there is that situation, and she has an adult decision to make, but I don't think that's unique. One of the biggest questions that I got, specifically from teenagers, but also from the adult readers, was, what is with that girl? So Courtney in the Fountain, Ava arrives at school, the school and her reputation precedes her because her family had gone to the school, and she gets really upset. She runs off into the woods and she throws a coin into a fountain, and she wishes that this one girl had never existed. And then it actually happens. And so that's the premise of the Fountain. Now, that happens in the first 3 chapters. And then the girl is gone, and she never gets a chance to defend herself. But she's truly horrible in the Fountain. And so what I did with the Westwoods is actually a prequel. And it is Courtney's story. So the girl who got wished away, there is her story, because there's actually a very good reason why she was acting the way that she was. And I'll give you a hint without a spoiler, but it has to do with magic. And so her journey from being a regular kid to where you meet her in the Fountain, which is like probably, if you think of the worst person that you knew in your high school, that's her. And she's not just a one-faceted mean girl. She actually has a story of her own, and so to write that was super fun. She's got friends. Like the story also has romance in it. Obviously, that's what the readers are going to be excited about. That's what the Fountain is known for. But it also has a much stronger story of friendship, the Westwoods, and her development, her character development, I think, is very strong through being a regular girl, and you're going to feel really sorry for her, because she's got, talk about adult decision making. She is in a predicament, and the way that she ends up, you're going to get.
Yeah, fair enough. So I'll ask this, because I just did an interview with Pat Flowing. One of the things we ended up talking about is the whole concept of appearances can be truly deceiving. Mm-hmm. And I somehow feel you're touching on this quite a bit in book 2. Is that the case?
Well, I think it is, and I think, one of the things that is a neat lesson, or like, not to bang you over the head, and certainly these books don't do that, but is a neat thing about writing for young people is that they're learning still, and their perspective is their world, and they don't always see things from other people's point of view. So the Fountain is written from Ava's point of view, and to her, this is just the worst thing that's ever happened, right? But then to see the Westwoods is written from somebody else's point of view, and Ava isn't even at the school yet. And so to sort of, I'm hoping that people will sort of get this out of it, to think about it and go, wow, I never really thought about it from her point of view. I never really put myself in her shoes. And I think as people, as we grow, I think that's a really important thing to learn, and it was really, really fun to do in fiction.
Well, the other thing too is mistakes we all make mistakes. That is an inevitability of life, but sometimes those mistakes make us feel like have incredible consequences. It doesn't necessarily make you a monster, though. It just means you screwed up and you made a terrible mistake. I somehow, again, I haven't read the book or anything like that, but I somehow feel that some of that will apply to Courtney.
Absolutely, and I think some of that really applied in the Fountain as well, because the reason that Courtney had to be so horrible, because you have to like Ava, and she, she's just doing the best she can, but when she's faced with this horrific thing that happens to her, or a series of things that happens to her, she makes this awful wish that isn't her. And I think that's really important, and then she really struggles with what she's done. Mm-hmm. But she was pushed into it. She was pushed right to the brink, right? Okay. And so, the reason she was pushed to the brink, I felt was really important to come out. So readers are really excited to find that out.
No, it's very cool. Like I said, I really did enjoy that. I was pleasantly surprised at the a little bit more depth in terms of young adults sometimes have this tendency to be, again, not saying your book is like this all like the Katniss syndrome or the I don't want to say Twilight, but the chosen girl with powers is facing some kind of malady, big bad, whatever. No, this actually just it really focuses on some real issues, real struggles. It's a lot about growing up and just about what kind of person you want to be. And I thought that was actually one of the reasons why it was such a good read.
Yeah, and I think it also, really touches on the Fountain, and I didn't do this intentionally, but what I get from the readers is that the twists and turns kind of keep you guessing. I mean, that's who I am as a person, and that's how I think, and so it came out in the book. But I think what's important is, Ava's trying desperately to control her own destiny, but sometimes you can't, right? And then how you deal with that actually shows who you are as a person, and that's where the character development comes in, is how she deals with that situation.
That's how we all become who we are in some form or fashion. Yeah. So you're going to go for another Aurora? Are you going to go beyond getting nominated this time?
Well, I hope so. That's true. The last time we spoke was on the eve or the morning after.
The morning after.
But the fountain was I was blown away. The fountain was shortlisted for an Aurora Award in 2016, and I think what was super fascinating to me was this amazing community of science fiction and fantasy writers in Canada viewed my book as, worthy of the Aurora, which was fascinating. And what was neat is, a few of them obviously they're not in my genre. There's very few young adults that are part of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Association and Canadian Science Fiction and Fantasy Association. And, to have 50 and 60-year-old men and women and just people of all walks of life come to me and tell me how much they enjoyed it was really neat.
Yeah, it honestly doesn't. I mean, it is a young adult story. You can tell it's young adult. It doesn't feel like a typical young adult book, though. It actually feels like something you could have made that very easily a fiction book in the literary section, and it would have fit there just fine.
Yeah, and but it also appeals to that sort of younger reader. Yesterday here at the conference, I ran into somebody who was just absolutely speechless. She said she only came to get the Westwoods. I said, "Oh, it's not coming out till next month," but she was a little bit disappointed. But she literally, it's really neat when you connect with readers. Absolutely. And they tell you, how much they liked it.
You should. Did you get her name?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you should look her up when the book comes out. Do something really cool for it.
I'm doing it now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I super appreciate. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can cut it out.
It's okay. Yeah. It's no big deal. No, it's like it says, it happens. It's the way it goes. Like, how you? No, it's right. It's just the way it goes.
Isn't that how we first met?
Yeah. Actually, it kind of was how it went. Yeah.
Where were we?
How we first? No. But no. What we just with. So I mean, it's just interacting, getting fans. You're starting to actually get yourself somewhat noticed. I guess is the right word. I mean, you did get an Aurora nomination after all. I mean, that does get attention one way or the other. Have you noticed a change at all, or won't know until the second book comes out?
I think I'm really excited to hear how people react. I did have a strong group of 10 beta readers that read the Westwoods, 7 teens and 3 adults. And the reaction was awesome. They were really, what I was most concerned about was because people just love the fountain and, have this, when's the next book out? So, it's a little bit of pressure and you don't want to disappoint.
Sequels are tough because it's almost like, I'm doing a different thing, but when I did the first one, it's like, okay, what worked about this? What and then you got to kind of keep it somewhat consistent to what came before, and yet at the same time you have to do something that's different and new at the same time. I found that was so the sequel for me was Storm Dancer versus the Watcher was harder for me to write just because I was serving more masters. Does that make sense?
I totally agree. I actually mistakenly, as a new author, assumed that writing book 2 would be easier because the world is already developed. But guess what? The world is already developed, and so you can't discover it again freshly. You have to recap it because
Absolutely.
Actually the Fountain and the Westwoods can each be read as a standalone, and it's not a big deal because it's a prequel. But the world is already there, and you can't rediscover it through the eyes of a different character, and it's dull. So you have to actually create twists and turns and expand that world, and that was actually really fun to do, but it's something I didn't realize until I got into it.
No, you're like, oh crap, I can't go back to this trick anymore because I already did that. I gotta do something different. Or it's like, well, her story is this way, and not so much. I equate it to like salt in the ocean, right? You throw salt, you take salt out of the water, and you put the salt back in the water. It's a different kind of salt now, even though it could be the same water. So I imagine it's probably something like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I actually went to when I realized that because you have the same level of outline, and then I was like, oh, this isn't enough to fill a book because and then I went back to some of my favorite series in young adult. the number one, and I hate to be cliche, but Harry Potter. I mean, one thing that J.K. Rowling does an amazing job of is every book, there's recap, but every book there's a new element and there's new characters introduced, and I think that's really important to keep it fresh.
Yeah, and she also made a very conscious decision that every book would be a year older, so she could add gradually a little bit more complexity to each and every book. So by the time you got to the end,
they're long books.
Yes, they are, but they're also more adult books because she expected that you would grow into the books.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
Yeah. So, whereas this, is it more complex?
I think that The Fountain was significantly complex to start. So I think it's similar. But what really surprised me about The Fountain and the response to it was there's an adventure storyline, there's a magic storyline, and there's also a fantasy sort of storyline, and there's also a romance. And what interested me the most is what people respond to is the romance piece of it. And so I already had the outline to the Westwoods done, and really the romance part of it wasn't the focus in the outline. And I went, oh no, right? Because then you're building a fan base that expect a young adult romance. And I meant to put the romance in there, but I didn't realize that was going to be the part that really set the book apart, if that makes sense, and what the book became known for and what really connected, particularly with teens. That romance part is where I get like a string of emojis on social media and some, and which just thrills me because, that's how they're expressing it, but that's the piece that they love. And so I actually rewrote the storyline for the Westwoods to build that component in a stronger way. Because it was there, it just wasn't as strong as it was in The Fountain, and I think it was expected. Is
that why it took longer to write it, or is it?
Is that a dig?
No, it's not a dig.
I don't know that it actually did take longer to write it. It actually was shorter.
Yeah.
But I know that it's been about 18 months, and for people that feels long. I think. Now that we have 2 books in the pipe, we've taken a different approach to the marketing, and we've had it ready a little bit sooner, and then we delayed the launch so that we could get some buzz going and get some, online exposure and things like that. But the actual writing of this was much quicker. Yeah. It's just, the writing of The Fountain is 2 years in draft, and then 2 years to find a publisher, and then another 4 months.
Yeah.
Whereas this one I wrote in about a year. It was drafted before, but it wasn't until The Fountain was out that the story really took shape, because you got the feedback from the readers and you knew what needed to come next, if that makes sense. So I didn't have them all done at the time.
No, it also makes sense too, because I know Michael, he's growing. I interviewed him not too long ago on the podcast, right before my 100th episode, and I was just noticing a couple things. I'm also noticing his presence and stuff like that. He's quietly He's not
Evil Alter Ego Press.
Evil Alter Ego Press. Evil Alter Ego Press is quietly making an impressive string of books all the way through the line, and he's not being as vocal about it. But I always get the sense with him, it's like, actually, I kind of get this always the same sense with you too. Is that okay?
We have a plan.
There's a plan, and there's things happening, and they're moving. And I would not be shocked if in, say, 2 years, he's as big as Edgertype.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me.
Exactly. So Evil Alter Ego Press has been amazing to work with. I think for myself, with my business background, it's been a great hybrid. I think there's a lot of advantages to being self-published, but me as a new author, I appreciate the experience. Evil Alter Ego Press is a partnership between Michael Plested and Jeffrey Height, who is out of upstate New York, and Jeff is the editor, which was awesome because this book series is set in New England, and so to have that American perspective and make sure that sometimes you'd be like, is this a Canadianism? I don't know what this is, and you're like, oh, sorry. And I grew up in New England, but sometimes you don't, or I went to elementary school there, but sometimes you don't catch it yourself. But the thing is that they've been a great press to work with, because they do let me be involved in the business aspects of it, and we do plan these things out together, and the launch date was very specific. We had initially planned for spring, and there was lots of reasons why we put it in the fall, and I couldn't be happier. And just so you know, and keep your ears open, they do have an announcement. They have signed a new author, and they're going to announce it at our social tomorrow.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
very cool. No, he's no, like I said, just something I very quietly I've been noticing, like, But again, my perspective is unique because I interview people, so I can kind of just go, okay, so this is where you're at here, this is where you're at here. I'm like, oh, okay. That's it. But I mean, it also makes sense too. Building buzz, like bigger publishers always usually finish books approximately a year before they actually publish them. It's about making sure it gets into a variety of hands, so that again, you build the buzz, you build the momentum as much as possible, and then launch. Yeah,
so this book, The Fountain, launched in December 2015, and in January of 2017, so just over a year, was when the Westwoods draft 1 was complete, and then we've been working on it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like I said,
just takes time. It takes time.
Quiet master plan.
Well, there are other people that write books faster. It isn't me today. I mean, maybe someday if this becomes more of my focus, but I just think it takes time to, especially a tricky plot like these, it really takes time to marinate and to come together.
A person, again, this is a personal opinion, so take this with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
You feel to me like someone that's very deliberate, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of advantages to it. You set your own pace. You set your own tone. You don't have to be the fastest guy in the room. In fact, it's probably a good idea that you're not, because the guys that are super quick, they're I can't remember what they're called. They run lemmings that go off the edge, right? So you get to see what they do, which is fine. But you've got your own pace. You get your own plan, and then you execute your plan to the best of what you know how to do. I somehow feel, again, I don't know you that well personally, but I somehow feel that's how you approach everything, and that's not a bad approach.
Absolutely, I am a planner.
Yeah.
I'm a planner, and my husband would attest to that as well. I'm a little bit. I can roll with it, and I can go with a lot of things, but scheduling is not something that I appreciate changing, and that's just my quirk. Because, as you know, with a full-time job, I have 3 kids. I have my author career. I have all of these things.
Your time is valuable.
Well, and I volunteer, for my kids' activities. I'm busy, and I know everybody says that, but I truly mean it. And every minute of every day is scheduled for me, and that's not bad, because part of that is writing time, and part of that is promotional time, and all of those things. But if any one of those sort of connections breaks, I have to rejuggle a lot of things. And so for me, like, it all fits. I make it all fit. But if something gets moved, I find that really tricky personally.
No. See, I'll admit this on here. I hate having my time wasted. I hate, like, that's my absolute worst pet peeve. When people say they're going to do something, I'm old-fashioned. I kind of expect that you're going to do it. Now, if you don't do it, like, again, life happens. And if life happens, you tell me about, okay, this is what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
I understand that. I mean, I might still be a little bit perturbed now it's on me. Because it's like, okay, at least you told me what's going on. I respect that. I don't feel like maybe you're the ruthless off with their heads kind of thing. I don't feel that that's you. But I could see with you would get annoyed. Because as you say.
Well, I just don't know how to recover sometimes, because there literally is nowhere else to put
that. No. I get you. But I could see that with you. You're one of those people. You're one of those people. Because again, you have so much that you're doing.
Yeah.
You're right. You only have, and again, and something I'm very conscious of too as I'm getting older. You only have so much time. Like, time's the one thing we can't get back. Like, you can lose money, you can make more money, right? You can have things lost, you can replace those things. Time only goes one way.
Yeah.
That's it. So if people don't appreciate that time, that moment, right? Like, I appreciate the fact that you took the time to do this, right?
You too, likewise.
Yeah. So. But that's the thing, right? Like, time, like, again, I would argue the expression "time is money" I think is actually a very literal thing. It's the only currency we really.
Absolutely.
It's the only currency we really have. So I can I understand that. I mean, I probably share a little bit of that neurosis myself. I feel also too in some cases like there's more at stake with you too. You're putting because you have a family, because you have like you're putting so much on the line.
A family that I love,
Yes.
and you know, like I spend time too. I'm not saying that I'm spending all of my time. You gotta give back into that. You know, we just did a panel. We talked about giving back into the well. Like you can draw off your family and they can support you for so long, but at some point you become emotionally expensive, I think was the comment.
No, it's true.
That I'll attribute to
it's so
Adam
true.
Grease, but
no, it's true. It's absolutely true.
So yes, I realize that fans would like books sooner, but sometimes
life happens.
Sometimes, well, you got to be realistic about it, and I think if you try to rush, there's different things about it with the caliber and the type of book that I write. It just does take time, and yes, if I was doing it full time, I could probably do it a little bit faster, but I don't think it would be exponentially faster. I don't think, for me, these are not the kind of books that I can sit down in a chair 40 hours a week and have done in the same amount of, hours that I spend, because these stories are something that I carry around with me all day, and then when I sit down, it's very productive because I know what I'm going to say, right?
Yeah, no, and fair enough. So I got two final questions. So, because I have a zillion series in my head, I'm imagining, is it something like that in your head too, where you're like Adam would say, okay, so you're driving a car and you have your big idea on the side, and you got like a bunch of like little kids or ideas behind you. So
no,
no,
I'm not actually, and I know lots of people like that. I'm not. It's not that I don't have ideas, and I don't have any trouble coming up with ideas. I am crafting the next series in my brain right now. I've had a lot of chats with my 11-year-old, who's a terrific sounding board.
Awesome.
Because she's a huge fan, and she reads a lot of fantasy, and she reads a lot of things. And I want to write. I write for a slightly older audience, but at the same time, she's awesome to bounce ideas off of. And I think that. No, I kind of noodle on one idea at a time, and like I said, I do, because I am busy during the day. I take that story and I dive in hard, and I let those sort of plot points work themselves out until they're ready, and then I write them. But yeah, it's not the fastest way to do it, but this is a passion. And it's the way that it works for me.
No, and there's nothing wrong with that. I figured I'd ask.
No, you're right. I mean, lots of people are like that. If I was like that, I don't know how I would manage everything in my life, because I would have to write them all. But no, I don't have that issue right now. I have this series, working on book 3 for the series, which is as yet untitled. So I welcome people's comments.
Untitled.
Yeah.
The Aurora-winning Untitled.
The Aurora-winning, formerly known as the Found series.
Yes.
Book 3, right?
Yes.
No, I have lots of ideas, but we haven't chosen one yet. And then I have this other series that I'm working on that. I'm talking to a number of people about, because the whole space is changing, and what worked when I started The Fountain is going to be different than what works when I finish the next series, right? So. Well,
change is the one constant of the universe.
Fascinating. I love change. Yeah. Change is my friend, other than schedules. Anything else?
No. Change is always inherently a good thing. So. Yeah. I think the last question is: so is it going to be a trilogy, or do you actually have like more beyond that?
I don't know. I think there's definitely 3 books. There may be other novellas. I think there's 3 books and potentially some other smaller pieces. Okay. I think that the world is very satisfying as it is, and they'll be in their graduate year, and it just doesn't. Yeah, I don't see it, but you never know, because I think a lot of what ended up in the Westwoods came from feedback from fans and readers, and. So who knows where it's going to lead.
All right. So I guess the final point is, how can people find you?
How can people find me? They can find my books. The Fountain is out there, and I'm not sure when you're airing the podcast, but...
It'll be September-ish.
September-ish? Okay, so the September 22nd is the official The Westwoods launch online. It will be up before that, available for pre-order. So you can go on there, and you can find me at Suzy Vadori. That's SUZYVADORI.wordpress.com.
All right. Once again, I thank Suzy Vadori for coming on my podcast. Her launch event for the Westwoods happens September 10th, 6 p.m. at the Vin Room in Calgary. You should come check it out when you can. And that's another episode of Just Joshing. If you like this podcast, you can support it in a number of different ways. First off, you can follow or subscribe to this podcast either through Podomatic.com, jpendeloresco.podomatic.com, or through iTunes under Just Joshing. Reviews would be welcome as well. Or you can buy my books. You can get either The Watcher, Storm Dancer, currently through Mirrorworld Publishing, mirrorworldpublishing.com, or Amazon.com, or wherever books are sold electronically. You can check it out there. You can check my YouTube channel out at Joshua Penteloresco. Past episodes are there. There are 50 plus episodes currently there for you to listen to, including the original Suzy Vadori podcast, there for your listening pleasure. Beyond all that, though, stay inspired, stay out of trouble, don't get caught, have an alibi, or have an accomplice to take the blame. I don't judge. I don't really worry about those sorts of things. But above all else, embrace change and live. That is the most important thing to do of all. All right, guys. See you next time.
Josh. Shush.